Welcome to Grow Groups at Port City. I'm so glad you decided to join us today. We're finishing up our series on faith, and next week we're going to launch a new series on I Want to Believe But. And we're going to look at some of the common opposition or the common reasons why people struggle in putting their trust in Jesus and believing that He is who He says He is. But I want to take you through 6 stages of faith real quick before you dive into your Grow Group. Ecclesiastes says that God makes, in 3:11, God makes everything beautiful in His time, but it's in His time. Things don't always happen the way we want them to happen. And so let me just give you those 6 stages, and then as you go through the Grow Group plan tonight, towards the end, you're going to get a moment to reflect on where you are currently in these stages. The first stage is a dream. God seeds a dream in your heart and in your mind, just like He did with Abraham. Abraham's 75 years old, living life, and God seeds a dream in his heart. And so that's the first stage. You get a dream. There's an awakening within you of what God could and wants to do in and through your life. But then the second stage is decision time. You have to decide whether you're going to believe and trust God in that dream and act upon it, or whether you're just going to sit and let the moment go by. And so Abraham acts upon it. He gets up and he leaves and he begins to follow God and go to a land that God had not told him where it was yet, but that he would possess it one day. Then there is the inevitable delay. Delay. Whenever God gives a dream, you have to make a decision. You have to take action by faith, but there's always a delay. See, God doesn't work on your time. He makes all things beautiful in His time. So the delay is that 11 years later, after the original dream was seeded in Abraham's heart, he still has no child. He's 86 years old and no offspring. And so he's tempted to take matters into his own hand, and he actually falls into temptation, and he does take matters into his own hands, which complicates things down the road. And often when God is delayed is when you and I are tempted to take matters into our own hands instead of trusting and continuing to obey God and trusting that His dream that He put in our hearts, that He will bring that dream to fruition. And as though it's insult to injury, inevitably in the midst of the delay comes the fourth stage of faith, and that's difficulty. So the years click by. Now Abraham's 99, Sarah's 89. It's physically impossible. He looks around and there is no hope that the dream that God seeded in his heart so many years ago, 24 years earlier, will ever come to fruition. But that's the moment that God loves to show up. And so Isaac is born at age 99. But that's not the final stage. You see, as the dream begins to give birth and as the dream begins to come to fruition in our hearts and in our lives, God will ask you and challenge your faith again, and He will take you to what seems to be a dead end. You see, God comes to Abraham and He tells him, I want you to go up on the mountain and sacrifice your son to me. All those years waiting, all those years after having trusted and lived by faith, survived the delay, survived the difficulty, and now God brings him to a dead end that I want you to give the dream up. But Abraham has faith. He tells the servant as they go up to the mountain, we are going up and we are coming down. And the last stage of faith is deliverance. When not only is the dream birthed within us, but we are free to enjoy it, and we see how God's hand has moved and worked in our lives. So the question today is, where are you in the stages of faith? Maybe you're at the stage where God's just begun to seed a dream in your heart. Maybe the dream has been seeded, but you're trying to make a decision whether or not to trust God and to move and act upon that dream. Maybe you're going through a season of delay where, man, you've acted upon it, but just stuff isn't happening. Or maybe you've been waiting and there's been a delay, but now it's just things are getting worse. The odds are growing against you. Maybe you've survived the difficulties, but now God, in some way, fashion, or form, has asked you to give up and to surrender that dream. Ultimately, stay faithful. God always comes through and keeps his promises. So as you guys navigate faith tonight, wrestle with where are you in your journey, and then begin to make the right decisions to move forward and to grow in your journey of faith. God bless you guys. Have a great night.